So what is internal family systems, IFS, and why should you care about it as a life coach? Now, in this video, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview. Like I'm going to aim to make this about 10 minutes so you can get a really great understanding of what it is and why you should look it up, why you should learn it. I highly recommend, at bare minimum, pick up one of the Richard Schwartz IFS books. You can also go and actually study IFS. And then we also run a course called Integrated Self-Dynamics, which is a really practical, pragmatic view of it that combines that with developmental psychology and somatic work and a bunch of other things. So IFS stands for Internal Family Systems. And so the idea is that actually, I would say, like, it's more than an idea. It's a fact that we are a fragmented self, where we have a fragmented psychology. So really what happened, just to give you like a kind of a quick overview, is that through Richard Schwartz being a therapist, he noticed that clients would just start using this language of parts. And they would say, well, a part of me really wants to move forward, but a part of me doesn't want to move forward. And then there's this conflict. Or they would say, well, part of me really wants to go there and wants to feel these feelings, but part of me is afraid of feeling those feelings. Or it could be part of me would like to leave this relationship, but another part of me is afraid of being on my own. And I'm not sure if I can actually do it and pull that off. And so he became aware of this fragmented language and then created what's called internal family systems based on the reality that we all have a fragmented psychology. Now, what that means is that we are made up of many, 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 many parts. Now, I don't think this is a very, very hard sell really to anyone, because I'm sure you can relate to what I've said so far. Like, it's pretty normal to say, well, part of me wants to, and I'm most likely talking to someone who's a life coach here, or you're at least a personal development enthusiast. And there's a part of you that wants to start your business. And there's a part of you that just wants to stay employed. I was talking to someone the other day. Part of her wants to succeed in a life coaching business. Part of her wants to stay at home and just be a mum and hang out with the family, right? Part of you wants to wake up early and start looking after your body. But another part of you wants to stay up late, eat kebabs, and watch more Netflix. That's the norm, right? The conflict is the norm, right? I don't think any one person says that me am just completely 100% sure of exactly who I am. And I'm 100% in alignment with every aspect of me, my inner child, who I am right now, my future self. There is no aspect of me whatsoever that is doubting any direction that I'm moving in at all. That person doesn't exist. And if someone says, I am that person, generally that just means they've got extremely low self-awareness, which interestingly is a protection mechanism, right? There's a part of them that is keeping them separate from the reality of who they really are, which is a whole other conversation. So why should we know this? Like, why is it really important? Well, what I've seen in practice, and maybe you've seen this as well in your coaching practice, is that there will be parts of a client that will be really, really great at protecting them from accessing the pain that they need to feel to be able to heal. Now, I think one principle that's really important, and I'll do another video on this, but we need to feel to heal. That's huge. I highly recommend looking at the book called Emotional Intimacy by Robert Masters. That guy's phenomenal. And the way that he writes about how we need to turn towards our emotion as a way to be present to ourselves, connect with ourselves, but most importantly, like, the simplistic dynamic of processing an emotion is to turn towards it and choose it fully, right? Most people spend their life avoiding all of their pain because they're avoiding all of themselves, right? They're avoiding everything about themselves. And we live in cultures that, shame you for feeling a certain way, or shame you for not being enough, and so on and so on. That's a whole other video on its own. And so we need to feel to heal, right? Very important principle. So when I'm working with a client, one of the goals I'm thinking about is, okay, well, is there any emotion here? And like, I don't meet people that don't have buried emotion. I think it's just the way we are. I'm thinking, where is the emotion here that needs to be made contact with, that needs to be felt fully, so we can express it and let it out of the body? And for some people, it's as simple as that, right? you say, hey, well, what happened? And they'll say, okay, well, actually, there's this thing I haven't spoken about, and this is what happened. And you can hold space for them, and you can show them empathy. You can help them feel safe by using your regulated nervous system with their with their nervous system, so they can co-regulate with you, and you can guide them into a place where they can feel their feelings. Amazing. But with some people, you can't. It doesn't matter how lovely you are or how warm your facial expressions are. They will have a part of them that is committed to protecting them from feeling those feelings. And in IFS, we call them protective parts, right? Parts of you that are being created to protect you. What are they protecting you from? Feeling the pain that you have felt previously. So let me give you like a real world example that you might be able to relate to, or maybe you've got some clients that can relate to this, but it's pretty common stuff. Is, let's say, for example, you've got a client and they're just like procrastinating on starting their business, and they can't stop procrastinating on starting their business. Like willpower doesn't work. Motivational speeches don't work. Like they even know exactly what to do, but for some reason, they're holding themselves back, right? Now, to use parts language, I would say for some reason, part of them is holding them back. And here's the thing. With parts work, and this is very much the language that we use in the integrated self-dynamics certification that we teach, is that we have to start turning towards ourselves, turning towards our mind, turning towards our body, turning towards our emotions. And we have to turn towards ourselves first with curiosity, right? Okay, well, I don't want to just argue with this part of me. I don't want to just disagree with this part of me. I don't want to get frustrated with this part of me. Obviously, that doesn't work. I want to start being curious. With curiosity, hopefully I can actually start getting more information, which is understanding. So with curiosity, I can get understanding. So I can get more information. I can learn, okay, well, I wonder what this part of me is holding me back from, right? And it's never the obvious. I want you to think like in every coaching situation, you've got the obvious emotion, like, okay, well, maybe I'm afraid to fail, right? In this context that I'm making up about someone they're procrastinating. Maybe I don't want to make mistakes, right? That's kind of the surface. But there's always an emotion underneath the emotion. And so in great coaching, you want to go a level deep always. And so, it's very easy to think, okay, well, maybe you just don't want to fail. It's kind of like a blanket statement that I think anyone can relate to. But underneath it, we have to get more specific. We have to find out specifically why for this person, what is this part of you protecting you from? And a great question is, and when did it learn to start protecting you? Like at what stage did this kick in, right? And so let's just say, for example, this person has experienced some pain in their childhood. Very, very common. So there's two types of trauma. We've got big T trauma and small T trauma. Big T trauma are things like sexual abuse and all forms of abuse, war, for example, extreme violence, death, things like that. And then small T trauma are things like that we all experience. So for example, it could be bullying, having emotionally unavailable parents, growing through scarcity and just having like money problems, health problems, and then that putting stress on the family that's interpreted by the children, right? So let's say, for example, that this made up person that we're talking about has not processed a significant amount of grief from their childhood. Sorry, not processed a significant amount of pain from their childhood. Now, so what I would say is that there is grief there that has not been grieved. Now, interestingly, the way that the body responds to grief is it essentially says, well, back then it was really painful and we have not dealt with that yet. And so therefore, I'm worried about more things like that happening again, right? And so the way that the brain can work is in a kind of a simplistic way. It'll say, well, let's protect ourselves from feeling that pain again, right? That's smart. That's really, really good. And the manifestation of that could be, therefore, let's just stay really comfortable inside our comfort zone. Let's not get out of our comfort zone. And, starting that new business or whatever it is, that kind of looks a little bit scary. We don't know what's going to happen there. People are going to see us, right? People are going to judge us. Maybe that reminds me a little bit of what happened in the past. Therefore, no way in hell am I doing that thing. Doesn't matter what you think. There's a part of that person that says we're not doing it. We're not doing it until we figure out the genesis that is driving this protected part, right? And so I'm giving you like one example to explain this. This is not how it always works, but it's a simple way to say this is one of the ways that protective parts works. Now in IFS, there's more than protective parts. We also have managers and we have exiles and a few other things that I'm sure I'll talk about in another video. But I think this is a great way just to simplify. Parts of you or parts of your client can become really wonderful at protecting you. And they needed to protect you at one point in your life. And what IFS does is it helps you see, instead of fighting this part of you or shaming this part of you or just getting mad at this part of you, it gives you a framework to turn towards this part and say, oh, okay, I need to turn towards and get curious about this protective part of me and ultimately become grateful for it. And that's, I'm not just saying for you to do that, but that's generally the process. And say, okay, well, I get that this part is protecting me. And then the next thing is, therefore, what emotion have I not felt, right? We've always got to land there. Now, I will just say here, this is where I don't like IFS that much. And I've worked with some IFS practitioners where the releasing of emotion becomes a little bit too disassociation technique style. So if you know, for example, an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there's a lot of emotional disassociation techniques where you kind of like remove the emotion, you move it away. And IFS has got some stuff like that, where when you access the emotion, it's kind of like, what do you want to do? Like change it, move it away, like remove it. And that's why I'm a big fan of the work of like turning towards and feeling our feelings fully. And that's where, for example, somatic practices and breath work can come in phenomenally useful to turn towards our feelings. So that's what we're going to leave the video for now. But I hope this has been useful. I'd love to know, are you learning IFS? Have you read, for example, No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, or Greater Than Some of Our Parts is another really good one by Richard Schwartz. Is there anything that I left out? Do you disagree with anything that I've said here in the video? I'd love to know in the comments. Let me know so I can reply to you specifically. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video.